Today's webinar is going to be how to sell service agreements. My name's Justin. I'm with BuildOps. I'm one of our product experts, and today I'm joined by Woody Woodall, who's an industry expert. If you all don't know who he is, you're going to find out here shortly. Woody, would you like to give a quick background on yourself? Because I think it's really important for the audience.
No problem, Justin. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great day to this point, and I hope this helps make your day a little bit. Appreciate you guys joining us today. I've been in the industry for about 48 years now. That makes me an official old guy. And so because I've had a lot of opportunities to work with some of the best and brightest in the industry, I bring a little bit of relevance to this particular subject matter. I've had an opportunity to, like I said, to work with some great companies and why they might be able to do this kind of thing. More than anything, I started the industry. I started my career as an apprentice, worked in the field for a number of years, got an opportunity to come into the office, and I've probably held just about every position in a service organization you could imagine. Started a couple of companies for other people, and it worked out pretty well for those folks. Very proud to be a partner. I named my company as Customer Focused Solutions, but I'm very proud to be a BuildOps partner. I work with them pretty closely, a great team of people. I enjoy working with them tremendously. So with that, Justin, let's get this thing started, buddy.
Yeah, let's go ahead and dive right into it, Woody. And just a couple of housekeeping items before I cut Woody loose. We are recording this webinar, so once that has a chance to process, we'll send that off to you in case anybody's got to jump early or anything like that. Also, this is going to be interactive. Number one, so unlike a lot of the webinars that y'all sit in, we expect you to be participating, right? You've got Woody's time, you got my time. We're here to answer questions. So notice that in the Zoom controls down, usually at the bottom of your screen, you can move them around if you need to, but usually at the bottom of the screen, there's a chat section and a Q&A section. So keep an eye on those. If any questions come up throughout the presentation, shoot them over. I'm keeping an eye on those, and if something I can answer, I'll answer it. If not, I'll go ahead and pose that to Woody. And then also, we're going to be asking you all for feedback as well throughout this process. So I just threw a poll up on the screen, and anytime we have these polls up here, what we want you to grab your mouse, answer those, because we got so many people in the room. Honestly, I just can't turn your microphones on today, but this is the way for your voice to be heard. So, I'm just curious how many of y'all are, selling service agreements today is really what it comes down to. It's you get, if you're selling them, you probably got some sort of strategy, but we'll help. We'll help kind of define some of that as well. So, if you guys could be quick with these poll questions, we can go ahead and close them off and get them moving through. So, looks like I got a couple more people. Waiting on getting those answered, but let's go ahead and end that poll and share the results. Woody, I don't know kind of what you expected. I really didn't know what to expect from this poll, but it looks like 35% of the folks, yes, they're doing it. 20% aren't doing it at all. And, the majority of folks might be doing it, but could use a little help on that. Anything sort of surprise or stand out to you there, Woody?
Actually, it's probably what I thought it would be. Depending on the company and how long they've been around, their leadership and what they've been doing, it really depends. As always, we can always get better, pick up a few tidbits and try to learn a little bit more. And hopefully that's what today's all about. It's pretty interesting that not many people, there is about 20% of our polled folks are not doing it currently. And as we get into this, you'll find out why I'm a little surprised at that. This is such an integral part of what service life is all about and how we go about, attaining work and maintaining work.
Yeah, and let's hop into it and talk about, the lifeblood of a service provider and how valuable these service agreements could be.
Sounds good. So as Justin just stated, in our opinion, the lifeblood of a great service organization, service provider specifically, is certainly service maintenance contracts. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that, and we'll get into all of those reasons. But it appears to us, and in talking to a lot of people around the industry, there seems to be a bit of a trend to move away from service agreements, and we're not really sure why. We're not sure whether it's the longevity of the sales cycle that takes so much time, the investment that goes into attaining those service contracts and maintaining those service customers, or maybe it's just some folks just have not been exposed that much to service agreements and selling service agreements that have caused them to go away from them a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, service agreements, it's a tough sell. The sales cycle is much longer than all of the other services that we offer, and there's a reason for that. We're asking our potential clients to change. And let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, change is not easy for anyone. And as we get into this, we're going to talk about some of the ways we might be able to mitigate that concern about changing completely. I will tell you this: if you focus in on service agreements and you maintain them and take care of that data like it was gold, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, I can't agree with you there more, Woody. And it always surprises me when I get folks on the call and they let me know that it's not a big part of their work.
Right.
And because it's so many other of your competitors basically have giant books of service agreements. And as
Right.
we'll get into, it's not just the value of the agreement itself, it's the value of the relationship that you build with the customer.
Absolutely. And the value is clear. The way to dependable top line revenue, and what we mean by that is, as we build that book of service contracts, that's guaranteed revenue on a regular basis if we're doing our job the way we should be doing. It helps us create a proactive work approach, workflow, and that's tremendous for us because this service is such a reactive business. As much as we want to, we should be focusing on trying to make as much of our business proactive as we can make it. It gives us an opportunity to develop our sales team in a different light. Sometimes if guys or gals that are selling for us are working towards strictly retrofits or rehabs or whatever it might be, and they haven't had the opportunity to be part of a maintenance sales cycle, it's great. It's a great opportunity for them to learn how to do that type of work and how to do everything that goes into that. The ability to compensate for seasonal slowdowns, because we all know that usually in the milder weather, the phone's not ringing off the hook for heating calls or cooling calls or any of that type of stuff. So that gives us some revenue, number one, but it also gives us the workflow for our folks in the field. And that's huge for maintaining our great field techs that we want to hold on to. And then last, but certainly not least, creating those relationships. That's the real value here, building those relationships up. And I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, when we build those great relationships with our customers, they talk amongst themselves with other facility managers and building engineers and such, and it just gives us that type of tie-in, that type of synergy that gives us an opportunity to really grow our business and continue to grow our business as we move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you brought up a great point earlier, sort of smoothing the curve, if you will, because, gets hot, it gets cold, we get busy. It's milder, we're not as busy. And that's a great time to be able to strategically backfill in those maintenance agreements and, having a couple different revenue streams that can come from those.
Absolutely. The other big part about this is enhancing our revenue stream. When we start to build that maintenance base and start to build it as we go along, and I've had the opportunity of working with small companies that have become very large companies, and they became very large companies through building their maintenance base. We would start out with one of the companies that I worked with, we started out with maybe $75,000, $100,000 in maintenance base. We built that up to well over $5 million in maintenance base. And it's easy, it's not easy, but it is attainable. The thing that's neat about that is, keep in mind, the revenue stream for the maintenance is one thing, but the pull-through work is huge. It keeps us working towards the things that we need to do. Our construction team, our service guys that do retrofits and also repairs. The other part of it too is that positive cash flow. If we have booked our maintenance contracts and have set them up to bill in advance, which is what we should all be trying to do, it gives us that positive cash flow so that we're not financing these jobs ourselves, and our clients are actually paying for the work before we even get out there to start to do it. And you never have to worry about where the next job's coming, because we've already got that maintenance space set up. We know that we have X amount of hours per month in maintenance that we have to bill and we have to do. And so that keeps the workflow steady. This is huge for your service technicians. Why? Because the service technicians want to feel like, you know, they've got some security here. And as we're building these maintenance contracts up and doing what we have to do, that's a huge part of building your team, is getting those good technicians on board.
Yeah, Woody, and I think you know, even myself with my background in construction, seems a lot of folks, you know, at first they're looking to chase those big contracts, and you know, the big ground up sort of construction, the big dollar amount contracts. But there's a lot of risk involved with work like that, and then also you know, maybe focusing more on the service agreements themselves builds more of a solid foundation, right? It's not so much boom or
Right.
bust, and then
Right.
you certain now you're basically the preferred contractor. So when they do come up with those the larger change outs or a new facility, you're gonna be in line for that work as well. So
Yeah.
you know, we'll talk about pull through work and in some detail. But you know, try to talk about, you know, we sort of, you know, talked about it already, but the optimizing that workflow.
Yeah, and you know what we're looking for with maintenance contracts, and I keep calling them maintenance contracts. We really should be calling them planned maintenance contracts. Um, excuse me. What we're looking for is we want to create that win-win situation for our clients, for our guys in the field, and for our companies as well. And there are benefits for us, there are benefits for the team, there are benefits for the customer, and that's how we create our value proposition to be able to go to market on a regular basis. You know, as far as our customers are concerned, we get the opportunity to work with them closely, get to know them better. We build a relationship with them. Our guys in the field get an opportunity to work on the same type of equipment on a regular basis. They know what these pieces of equipment are capable of doing, and if they're doing them properly. The neat thing about it is, you know, we've got all of the meters and all of the technical stuff to monitor and measure what this equipment's doing. But a big piece of being a good service technician is literally hearing that piece of equipment, knowing what it's supposed to sound like, know that if something is askew, it's not there. Two major things we're looking for all the time to create great customer service. Two things: meeting our customers' needs and meeting, and I would suggest exceeding, their expectations. Now, their needs are what? We're there to either fix their equipment, where they've got no heating, cooling, whatever it is. Their expectations, we have to find out what they are. How better to do that than to be into their buildings on a regular basis, on a continual opportunity. You know, as far as the team is concerned, the steady workload every month is huge. The ability to work on the projects that our customers have, keep them happy, leading to great employee satisfaction, you know, gaining proficiency and all of that equipment like I was talking about. And I can't stress enough the importance of having the same technicians out at the same maintenance contracts on a regular basis. Most of the clients that I have ever talked to, that's what they want, is somebody to be intimately familiar with their equipment and with their buildings as we're moving through, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. And as promised, guys, when you have questions on any of the stuff that we're covering, use for as big as this group is today, and as for as loud as contractors typically are, I'm telling you right now that the chat in the Q&A section is a little bit quieter than I would like to see it. Bill did ask a question. Looks like Bill's from the electrical trades, and Bill wants to know about, what ideas for electrical maintenance do y'all see there? Now, Woody, I'll take the easy one that I hear a lot of from my electrical customers. It's going to
Right.
be generator maintenance.
Sure.
I always ask when I talk to a an electrical contractor, hey, do you all do generator maintenance? And a lot of the times they go, yeah, we've got a couple. I go, well, do you install generators? Yes, I do. Well, then you should be servicing
Right.
those generators.
There are lots as far as electrical maintenance is concerned. There's lots of them. There's all of the starting, the testing that has to be done to all of the switch gear, all the way down to the small switches, all of the relays and things like that. On top of that, as far as electrical work is concerned, tightening checks that have to be done on an annual
Yeah.
basis. Ballast maintenance throughout a building as far as lighting is concerned. All of those kinds of things are there, and it really depends on the building and how new the building is. A big part of what electrical contractors can do now is Lutron and different companies like that. They're always looking for electricians or mechanical to partner with them so that they can have somebody in front of the client talking to them about how they can get better and more proficient in doing things. That's for sure. So,
and if you don't mind, Woody, we had a couple more
sure.
questions come in here. A couple of people pointed this out: Zach, Caleb, Jake, Ed. Appreciate this guy. They're paying attention for sure. They let me know that the chat feature is turned off, which, to be honest with you, I kind of like that. It's easier to, at least for me, to manage it in the Q&A section. So that said, if you all got questions, hit the Q&A section. I guess the chat's turned off, but to be honest with you, I like Q&A. It's a little bit easier for me to kind of scroll through anyhow. Zach sort of has a not so much a question, but maybe like a suggestion. And I think this is valid. It kind of goes to branding. It kind of goes to, maybe call it marketing a little bit, but, calling them agreement plans versus like a contract. What I'll tell you guys is, both Woody and I have talked to thousands of different trade contractors. I'm going to tell you right now, they all call it something a little bit different. So use what the verbiage, like even Woody and I are calling it something different. Sometimes, you call them service agreements. You can call them planned maintenance contracts. You can call them planned maintenance agreements. I see some folks that call them, partnerships, right? Service partnerships. Y'all call it whatever you want. At the end of the day, what we're looking for, and Woody, I know you'll touch on it, is really taking a proactive approach to this.
Right, absolutely. And one of the biggest challenges we have is being proactive in our business because we're in the service organization. So the phone rings, we pick it up. We usually have a challenge that the client wants us to take care of for them, and we have to react to that. The challenge for us is to try to smooth that out as best we can. We need to find an opportunity to become proactive wherever and whenever we can do that. And planned maintenance helps us do that. It helps us focus on the improvements and the efficiencies in all of our customers' buildings. That gives us that intimate, detailed focus on what the client's building is doing and what it could be doing and should be doing. Pre-scheduled visits encourage the proactive planning, period. If we pull up, if we've got the right type of operational system, we flip a switch and all of our PMs are printed out for us, and we've got them right there in one quick fell swoop. That tells us that, hey, listen, this particular month, I have 120 hours or 220 hours or 500 hours of planned maintenance I have to get done this month. This is a big challenge for us as far as maintenance contracts are concerned, is getting the maintenance done when we said we were going to do it. Some companies, everybody's trying to increase revenue stream. And so if a service call comes in and they have an opportunity to run it, you try to do that because that opens up the opportunity for new customers. But the fact of the matter is, we have to make sure we're taking care of our maintenance customers more than anything. And proactive planning leads to better service for the customer, better opportunities for the guys in the field to know that, hey, this particular month I've got to change all the belts in this particular at this particular facility, or maybe I've got, you know, 2 pumps that have to be changed out, or bearings, or whatever it might be. But it gives us a chance to be proactive in one corner of our life as far as service providers are concerned.
And it's awesome. I made a little comment there about the the Q&A section being a little quiet. It's on fire, Woody. It's on fire right now. So guys, anything that I don't get to live here with Woody, we will follow up with you directly via email as well. Because we just lit this thing on fire. A couple things I wanted to touch on, and I'll do this quickly to kind of keep us moving though. Ernesto asks, that or says he's a waterproofing contractor, and
Yes.
besides typical caulking and other sort of maintenances, what would you recommend? Now for me, I did a lot of work in construction defect research and inspections, and it was always came down to something leaking, right? At the end of the day, that's what's causing damage to these buildings. Now what I'd recommend, Ernesto, from where I sit, not an expert on this by any means, but testing. So if you kind of think in your head, hey, I don't know what else I could maintain, go and look at the other side. Testing. Go out there, flood a deck, flood a roof, flood whatever you're waterproofing, and to test to see if it leaks, and that could be a service that you offer, sort of cleaning the drainage, things like that. I know that applies on the HVAC side as well, making sure your condensate drains are clean. And then we had a couple other good comments. That I want to bring up. Lee is an electrical contractor. He says he's developed a maintenance program with monthly site visits. And what he's doing with those, basically, I'm kind of summarizing what he's saying, and we'll talk about this. Woody mentioned it a little bit earlier, but because you're on site doing this maintenance and doing the testing, what comes off of that is for additional pull-through work, right? And we touched on it briefly. We'll touch on it in more detail, but kind of the secret, is we're not just there to change the belts and filters. We're there to identify other additional work that we can recommend that the customer takes action on, and then obviously, making a margin on that as well.
Yeah. Well, I've been getting to what Ernesto was asking about. One of the big, not a secret, but one of the ways that we are successful servicing our clients is talking to them, listening to them. How much burden can we take off of their plate? How can we make them more efficient in their day? What can we do to make their job easier, help them sleep better at night? So the more you're in front of the client, the more you talk to the client, the better off you're going to be. Some of the things you can start as far as the sales strategy is concerned and start focusing in on is getting your team ready to go as far as maintenance contracts are concerned. Make sure that your team knows exactly all of the ins and outs of your maintenance proposals. Some companies offer full maintenance contracts. Some companies offer planned maintenance only. Some people have everything and in between. And so make sure that whoever is selling your maintenance contracts knows those contracts and can talk to the client logically about the advantages of doing that. Define what your people are going to be saying. Help them with overcoming objections, because there's going to be a ton of objections that you're going to hear. But if you've done your job properly and helped your salespeople be able to overcome those objections ahead of time, they've been there before already. So now they can start to work on those types of things. Manage your salespeople by the numbers. And we talked about that at our last webinar. Make sure that they're hitting their numbers. Are they in front of the client? Are they networking? Are they getting the proposals, the paper on the street, all of those types of things that go into being successful salespeople? Align your salespeople up as far as incentives are concerned with service agreements. If you want to put a premium on selling maintenance contracts, make sure that your incentive programs signify that. Some people actually have a separate salespeople for maintenance and separate salespeople for repairs and retrofits. It works tremendously for them. Keep in mind, our salespeople are human, and all of us usually try to take the path of least resistance, because the service sale is such a long lead item and it's a challenge. Sometimes we sort of migrate to the easier things like a retrofit or a change out of a piece of equipment or a service repair. So make sure that you keep those things in mind, and lay out a game plan. Make sure that you have talked with your team and develop tips and tricks and things that go into becoming successful salespeople focused on maintenance contracts, period.
Yeah, no, those are great points, Woody, and it ties into a couple questions that that we have here. You mentioned overcoming objections. Now, kind of, it's sort of the simple one, so I'm sort of giving you a softball here because I know you're crushed this one, but it's the one that I actually hear the most. The objection that I hear the most is, from the customers who are selling these things is, how do I compete on cost? Right? There's other people come in.
You don't. We don't compete on cost. We compete on value. We create such a breadth of value for the client, and we're able to articulate that to the client in such a way that they can't wait to do business with us. Is that easy to do? Hell no. But the fact of the matter is, that's how we have to compete. And keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, maintenance sales is not a low dollar business. You don't want to take maintenance contracts on a look, because this is what happens. You don't have enough money in it, so you start to cut corners, and now all of a sudden you get a bad reputation of not actually doing all of the work that you said you were going to do, and focus on what you have created here. So value. I can't say it enough. That value proposition that you put together for your maintenance sales, that should speak for itself.
Yep. And then Woody, as we kind of get into the next slide, there's been a couple questions here, and I think it sort of relates as we're moving through, is around the different sort of types of service agreements that y'all might sell. Now, we talked about some stuff, we talked about the inspection side, right, and that being part of it, or another service that can be sold. But talk to me about like a strictly planned maintenance versus like a full service agreement, because there's been a lot of questions in the chat about, hey, when do I do one versus the other?
Right.
Now, I don't expect to get into the weeds on exactly how y'all need to come up with the number, but maybe some broader strategies if you are selling some of those full service agreements.
Sure. So, when we sit down and start developing our questions for our clients, some of the things we need to ask, and sometimes they'll answer them, sometimes they won't. Simply, what is your budget for planned maintenance this year for your equipment? Number two, what is your repair budget for planned for your building? You take those two numbers and put them together. In many cases, we can offer them a tremendous service as far as full maintenance is concerned, that would save them a tremendous amount of money. And what I mean by full maintenance is this. If I walk into a building and say, hey, we'll put this under full maintenance, that means that anything that breaks, I repair. Anything that goes bad, I take care of. Emergency calls on the house, well, you're paying for them, the customer's paying for them, all of those types of things. Now, that scares a lot of mechanical contractors and electrical contractors and any kind of contractor that's out there. Why? Because it's sort of an unknown. But one of the things we can do is we can mitigate some of that risk by selling a multiple year contract. We might have one bad year over a 3-year period, but chances are, if we're doing our work properly, we'll have a couple of good years in there, and we will more than make up for an average year where we may have lost a few dollars or maybe even broke even. So there is some risk. There's also insurance available out there so that you can mitigate some of that risk for some of those larger pieces of equipment like chillers and large boilers and things like that. So that's what I mean by full maintenance contracts, soup to nuts. We take care of everything. It's not for everybody, but I assure you, the people that I know that have embraced that type of maintenance contract are very successful at it, and they have a lot of fun doing those types of things. Let's talk just a minute about our sales talk track. You know, when we're looking at selling maintenance contracts, we really have to focus in on the value that our company brings to our prospective clients, and what our prospective clients can expect every single time. We got to understand who that target audience is. We need to know what their pain is. We have to understand what keeps them awake at night, and we have to find a way to mitigate that. We got to define our selling proposition, but more than anything, we've got to define our value proposition to the client and be able to articulate that in a moment's notice. Many of us, as far as people that work in mechanical contractors, for mechanical contractors, there's a thing out there, a little thing out there called a elevator speech, where you've got a little 30-second commercial. You know, a lot of us will be out there networking, and somebody will say, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" "Hey, I'm a salesperson for XYZ Mechanical." "Okay, great, nice to meet you." Instead of developing a 30-second quick commercial that will make this person want to learn more about you and your company ahead of time, it pays back in dividends. You got to outline the key benefits of your service contracts, and we have to get creative. Everybody, the people that are tremendously successful in with maintenance contracts and selling maintenance are creative when they go to market. They look for ways and things that the clients are looking for that nobody else is even talking about. And we have to be able to understand what those potential objections are. When you have your sales meetings, one of the things I used to do is throw out 3 or 4 objections. Overcome this objection. It was sort of like a friend of mine does this. Lots of people do this, but anyway, we throw the objection out there, and then you have to overcome the objection right there, sort of impromptu. And it gives our salespeople an opportunity to practice their skills on a regular basis.
So I'd like, you know, not only is it Woody and I in the room today, there's hundreds and hundreds of you folks out there. You're lighting up the Q&A section, but I want to share something that Mike, I'm going to make an assumption here. I think Mike is probably a mechanical contractor, but he sums it up really well. And you know, I think it's worth bringing to the larger team is that, you know, and these are all bullet points that you've just touched on. So I think it's a, you know, a good way to kind of compound the value here. But, you know, first listen to the customer. I mean, this is verbatim from Mike. First, listen to your customer, right? And understand their challenges, and understand what downtime actually cost them if this equipment ends up going down. And then essentially the way we need to look at objections, we need to look at it as if they're really just questions that need answers.
Yeah.
So, you know, everyone's like, "Oh no, it's an objection." Sure it is, but it's really just a question that needs an answer. And as long as we have good answers for folks, that's sort of the goal. Now we're getting into sales by the numbers here. Woody, I want you to talk about that, but kind of as a preface to that, I do see a lot of questions here in the chat. I know it's not going to be the same for any business, but at a high level, Woody, could you tell me like a percentage, right? That's kind of what people are getting at here in the chat. Like when you say a successful, you know, maintenance program as a percentage of your business, and it's going to vary obviously, but could you ballpark that for the folks? Because I got a lot of questions around that.
Sure. What I have always seen and heard around the industry is anywhere from 40 to 60% of your book of business you should strive to have that much maintenance. And stop and think about that. If we're getting pull through work at a 3-to-1 ratio, and we're doing 50% of our business in maintenance, that means there's another 150% more that we're going to get as far as pull through work and opportunities. So that's what I've always heard, 40 to 60, depending on what you're doing and the area you're in.
And I like the way you quantified that too, of your current customer book.
Right.
So, that's, that I think that's an important point that we've made, and that we'll continue to hit on is those start with those people. I've got a lot of questions on, hey, should I cold call people? Should I do this? Should I do that? The answer is yes. The answer is yes to all of that, but also start with your book of business. If you do an install, there should be a thought, a consideration that you should also be trying to sell a maintenance plan with that.
And not only your current installs that you're doing, go back 3 years.
Sure.
Who have we installed equipment for the last 3 years? Do we have a maintenance contract with them? Why not? Let's give them a call. How are things going? How's your equipment running? How can we help you mitigate some of the risk of this equipment going down, or potential of something not working properly, or God forbid, we all see some of the issues that we have with air filtration systems, and all of that is a big piece of selling maintenance contracts. Very quickly, we sort of hit this at the last webinar about selling by the numbers. This is just a quick reminder: 8 to 10 calls to get one meeting. This is national averages, ladies and gentlemen. 3 to 5 meetings to get one opportunity, 4 to 6 opportunities to get a chance to get a proposal, and 2 to 5 proposals out there to get a win. That changes from person to person, the relationships that you're able to build with the customer and things like that. That's sort of the national averages. That gives you an idea of some of the challenges that your salespeople are up against, and some of the thoughts that have to go into maintaining and helping them be as successful as they possibly can.
Yeah, and Woody, before I cut you loose here on the next one, it's because I'm seeing this multiple times here, in the Q&A section. Guys, they're asking about like margin, like what should be a good margin. One, you shouldn't necessarily only think about these service agreements in terms of the margin that you're making on the agreement itself. The idea is that margin, to be competitive, might not be very, very thick in and of itself. But the reason why these maintenance agreements grow our business is because now we're getting pull through work from those agreements. So yes, we need to understand how many hours we budgeted. We need to understand how many hours we've used against that budget for the agreements themselves. And obviously the delta, between there plus the markup will give us our margin. But don't look at this as one dimensional, right? This is, we're playing chess, not checkers anymore, right? And it's not one move at a time, one piece at a time. It's this whole 3-dimensional puzzle.
Right. And as far as margins are concerned, depends on where you are, what part of the country you're in, and what your business actually is, what your core business and what your focus is. More than anything, you have to be able to identify what is your cost of a sale. What's it going to take me to get this sale? So that will shed some light on what sort of margins you want to create and how you want to do it. The other part of it too is how quickly do you want to build your book of business? Do you want to, hit the ground running and take anything and everything that you can get? Probably not, but you want an opportunity to get out there and start to build that base as best you can. Now, we don't need to practice at this. So you don't want to do it for free. That's for darn sure. Yeah. So make sure that you've got enough money in the contract to make money, pay the bills, and take care of your client the way you want to see it done. That's for sure. Let's talk just a minute about sales incentives, and this is a bit of a sticky subject because there's probably a million different sales incentive plans out there as far as mechanical, electrical, any kind of service organization is concerned. But if you're truly trying to put an incentive and build your maintenance space, make sure that you build that premium in on service agreements as far as service agreements are concerned. So let's just pulling numbers out of the air. If we're gonna put an emphasis on selling maintenance contracts, and so you might have your salespeople say, all right, I'm gonna give you 10% of however many sales service agreements that you sell. And maybe it's a 5% spiff on retrofits, things like that, whatever it might be. You wouldn't need to make sure that you build that in. You know, a lot of maintenance, a lot of contractors are actually focusing their salespeople. They have specific salespeople that focus in on planned maintenance only. They've got guys that do retrofits and repairs. They're over here. If they get an opportunity at a planned maintenance contract, they give it to the planned maintenance salespeople. Same thing with the planned maintenance salespeople. They get the opportunity to get leads back from the retrofit folks. It's a longer sales cycle. We know that, so we need to build that into some sort of plan that creates a bit of a sense of urgency for our salespeople to get out there and really knock on the doors. Do the networking, be where the potential clients are actually hanging around. For example, hospital building, and if you're doing work in the medical field, how about going and joining Hospital Engineers Association or 724 mission critical facilities, or whatever it might be, BOMA, IFMA, people like that. The more we're out there with the clients and where they are, and they get a chance to know us and understand us, the better off we're going to be. Make sure that you just don't give your maintenance guy or your salespeople, a yellow pad and a computer and say, hey, go get them there, buddy. That's the worst thing we can do. We have to provide them with guidance. We got to make sure that we're talking about selling incentive plan, and maintenance agreements on a regular basis. How are we doing with all of that? And make sure that our salespeople know that you're focused on that. It's important. Last but not least, network. Get where your clients are going to be. Make sure that you are an active part of these associations and these places that the building engineers and facility managers are hanging around, and make sure that you get to know them as intimately as possible. That's for sure.
Yeah, Woody, great points on all the above, and it sort of ties into a poll question that I got sitting here. Do you all have tools in place today? Right? Yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions in the Q&A section. Like, Ken asks, like, hey, can you recommend a tool for your maintenance checklist? Yeah, that's going to be Build Ops, right? We'll kind of talk about what we're able to offer on this as well, but should we offer maintenance agreements for every new customer? Absolutely. Now, this next comment I thought was really great, but unfortunately there's no name. It's anonymous, but anonymous tells us, because and the reason I'm bringing this up is because people have asked this question. They make the statement that, trying to grow your maintenance pool, your maintenance plans big enough to cover the overhead of the company. That way, on all the other work you're doing, on the bottom line of the balance sheet, that ends up being profit. Now, in 5 years, they've got about 600K. I assume that's annually in maintenance agreements. And he said number one thing was networking and cold calling.
Yeah,
a lot of folks ask in the chat, hey, should we cold call? Should we do this? Should we do that? What do you hit on networking and getting on the phones, pounding those phones? You talked about those metrics earlier too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's an important part of what we're doing and what we need to be doing and focus. Our salespeople, they look for us as the service leaders for direction. And if we never talk about maintenance contracts or how important they are to us or our customers, man, we're leaving our salespeople out there to flounder. And so it has to be important to us for it to be important to them, period. All right. So, Justin, we've got some, the poll, did you post the poll question, the results?
You know what? Let me share those results back up here. We should see that now. About 41% said, hey, they have a tool in place today to
Right.
Help track those sales agreements. But as a total, basically 60%, right? I mean, there's easy math there. Don't have one specific for service agreements. Anything out there that you want to comment on? Anything that might have caught you off guard with those numbers?
Nope, nope. For those that don't have that ability right now, that's something you really need to look into. That's an important part of the mix here, is having the tools available to support your sales folks, not just your sales folks, but your customers and your technicians as well. So it's all one big package, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
a few tips and tricks. Growing your customer base, it's not going to happen overnight. You have to be a little bit patient. As you get into it and start working with your sales folks, you're going to wonder, they're going to wonder, is this really worth it? You may wonder whether it's really worth it, because you're not seeing the instant gratification that you would see for construction projects or retrofits or service work, things like that. It happens on a pretty quick basis. On the service side, PM service contracts, it's important that you're patient and you allow your salespeople to get out there and do what they need to do. Every piece of equipment that you have ever installed in the last 3 years, you should have a PM contract on, period. You should be talking to the customer about that early on. When you propose to do the work, you should be talking about maintenance on that piece of equipment, because a lot of people think that, hey, this is a brand new piece of equipment, I don't have anything to do for a year because I got a 1-year warranty. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Don't put oil in your car. Buy a brand new car. Don't put oil in it and drive it for a year and see how fast the car dealership is going to support that warranty. Period. Review the off. Review one-off work that you've done in the past, clients that you've dealt with, maybe just for a quick service call, any of those things. They're at least warm leads that your salespeople can chase down. Most of the installation works that we have is all has a warranty of some sort. What we did at one company is we created a proactive warranty so that it got us in front of the client a little bit more often, so we could talk about the value of our company and how hard it is to find a good client or a good contractor that's focused on what's important to you, and make it a priority to actively go after service agreements. Talk about it, focus on it, get creative, find ways to do it. You have to set your sales goals, create a list of targeted accounts, systematically attack those, and track your team's progress. And like I said, your salespeople should have a couple of different lists: a list of attainable customers, a list of 2 or 3 big dollar companies up here that you want them to chase down a little bit, and maybe ones that they don't stand a snowball's chance, but you'll want them to go out and get creative and really go after different types of work and different types of customers, because that makes them better on a regular basis. So Justin, when you just a few additional thoughts before I turn it over to Justin. He can fill you in on the great job that BuildOps does supporting mechanical and electrical contractors out there. Think beyond the sell. Planned maintenance is if it's done properly, is a 20-year commitment. We're out there looking to make things better for our clients on a regular basis. We want to make sure that equipment outlives its life expectancy. We want to be there for all of the additional repairs. We want to be there when they want to do retrofit work. We want to be the first person they call for future work. We should be working up budgets for all of those people. We should have annual meetings with our maintenance customers and talk about what their building is doing and what they should be budgeting coming down the road. And you have to have the ability to help your clients through those budgets. If we're the ones that work those budgets out, who do you think they're going to call on the first time they're ready to do that work? They're going to call us. So it's important that we do all of those things, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, agreed. And there's a bunch of good comments in the chat sort of around that. And basically, we need to be, our customer's champion. right? And if you go into this and not think about it so much as like we're selling these agreements, this is a service. This is something that they need. I love the example of the not changing your oil in a car thing. What's really funny, Woody, is this wifey's got a brand new car. They don't change the oil in that thing for 10,000 miles. And I was like panicking. I was like, are you sure? Like 10,000? But, either way, we got to keep that maintenance going. And, I really wanted to talk about today, some of the tools that BuildOps has to offer on these. So I want to walk you guys through a quick service agreement. I want to show you all like how we manage this because there were so many questions about the tools in place. And I think, Woody, one thing that I hear from my customers, and I don't know if you've heard this, so if you could help me out on this one. One reason that they're not selling these is because they don't really have tools in place to help them manage them,
Right, right. And,
or
and,
ways
and
to report on it.
right. And honestly, when you stop and think about it, you've done all of this hard work, you've built this maintenance base up. And if you don't have a support mechanism to be able to pull that information out, it's like gold. If we can't mine that gold and share with the client and show them all of the wonderful things we're doing, we've lost a huge piece of the value of maintenance contracts right there, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I know we're coming up to the top of the hour. I won't take too long on this, but what I wanted to do is throw this up here for anybody who does have to jump right here at the top of the hour in case I go a little bit long. What we're getting into build ops right now is like, how do you manage these agreements? How do you schedule them? Maintenance checklists. What does the guy out in the field see? The invoicing side. And so probably just maybe 10 minutes on the product or so, but keep in mind that y'all can answer any sort of questions or ask any questions that might come up as I'm going through this product as well. I wanted to throw this opportunity up here. Let us know, hey, if you'd like to see more info about build ops, go ahead and hop in here and let us know. I'll also give you some of the contact information here as we wrap up. So we'll go ahead. Looks like most of the folks are in there as well. So here on the build ops side, it's really all about execution and operationalizing these service agreements. Now, one thing that helps sell them is knowing what do we sell, right? If I'm a new salesperson, my question is like, what do we sell? Now, in build ops, you're basically able to come up with templates for every different type of equipment that you all might service. And on the build ops side, this is customizable. And you can have different types of plans for different asset types. So you might have the annual plan as well as like the monthly or quarterly plan. You might have a summer or a winter, or it might be seasonal. It might be just straight quarterly. You might have different levels of maintenance that you sell. One might just be the belts and filters, and one might be an annual check across the board. What you're able to do in build ops is you're able to create these templates so that your sales people know what to sell. And then once you actually get these agreements in there, we're going to use this for our technicians out in the field as well. So any given service agreement, all you're going to do in build ops essentially is choose which of the templates applies to this agreement, right? We have a contract with the surgery center. What of our templates are we applying? Now, the nice thing is you can edit those templates as needed on an individual level. Heck, if for some reason templates don't apply to y'all, you don't need to use them either way. But it really helps to standardize that, because what we find is it's the difference is not so much on what are we going to do. The difference is what pieces of equipment live on that customer site. So if I popped into one of these customer sites, I'm going to see the full asset list of all the different pieces of equipment that they have on site. And if I open any of these pieces of equipment up, we can see, number one, is it covered by an existing service agreement, and the service history around that piece of equipment. So we've got sort of layers of this onion, right? We have the service agreement itself. We're going to go out there and perform the maintenance, but also we understand what pieces of equipment are on site. We're going to choose which ones are covered by the agreement. And then now on the piece of equipment itself, when you get that phone call from the customer, you get that phone call from the technician, we can then follow up with them. Hey, yep, we were out here on this date at this time. Now, one of the hard things is converting those agreements that we have in place into actionable items. And we do that by auto-generating the maintenance work orders. So you've told me how often are we going to go out there? What day are we going to, what, date range do these services need to be provided? We are now auto-generating those work orders for your team so that we can understand which ones are overdue, which ones haven't been scheduled yet, which ones have been scheduled but not completed, etc. Which ones do we need to bill for? We basically have a dashboard where we could sort of jump in and see that all on a single screen. Now, I can dispatch this right from here, right from this dashboard, or I can go to the dispatch board and dispatch them directly from the dispatch board as well. I can also pull parts lists for next month's services, or the services that we're going to be providing the next 60 days, and understand, hey, what belts, what filters, what do I need to order? I'm able to pull parts lists off of these as well. So not just when are we going to do it, not just what are we going to do, but also what do we need to buy. Can you talk a little bit about the benefit on that, Woody, as far as operationalizing these service agreements?
Justin, I'm sitting here smiling to myself, thinking how cool this particular system would be if I was running a main service contracting business. I'm retired now, of course. I just play golf, hang around with Justin every once in a while. But the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, the ability to be able to have this powerful a tool at your fingertips, and not just this. Once our guys have gone out and done all of their readings, all that data comes back and is assigned directly to whatever piece of equipment they've worked on. You can pull a history up, like Justin said, for an entire year. When you sit down with your client to review the year and understand what you've actually done for them, it's pretty impressive when you sit down and say, Mr. Customer, these are all of the things we've done for you. We've done your quarterly maintenance on everything. And oh, by the way, we ran 7 service calls, and of those 7 service calls, 2 or 3 were on the same piece of equipment. It's getting close to its life expectancy. We may want to budget for a replacement next year. It's a great tool to have, and I can't say enough great things, of course, about BuildOps and the ability they have to help us out.
Yeah, and I took that opportunity to take a look at some of the questions that came in, and I see a lot of recurring themes. One, can BuildOps help me understand what my spend, or what the spend has been, so that I can use that to sell a service agreement? Yeah, absolutely. You can go ahead and crunch the numbers. We can help crunch the numbers because we have all that data, provide you all a report that you can then provide to your customer of, hey, this was your spend last year. If you sign up for a service agreement of this amount, we're talking about value here. And then also, can BuildOps provide me a list of all my one-off installs? Yeah, absolutely. You can pull a report of all the customers who've had work done that don't have a service agreement in place. And you can use that as a piece of sort of like a marketing list, if you will. Woody, you asked, or you brought up a good point. It's like we got these sales guys, and they're dogs, and they're on the leash, and they're ready to go, but you got to point them in the right direction. You know what I mean? It's like you don't put your work in your technician out there without routing them. And so one way to route those sales folks is with some of the metrics that you can pull from BuildOps as well.
Absolutely.
Now, I think that I did my best to kind of hit most of the questions. There was a question about these service agreements, whether they can be billed all up front, upon completion, quarterly, annually, or on a T&M basis. Actually, yes, BuildOps can handle all of that. And to a point that Woody had brought up, also handle the budgeting for those full service agreements, the full service. Am I saying that right, Woody? It sounds weird.
Yes.
For me. Okay.
Yes.
The full service agreements. There you go.
Right.
Those full service agreements, you've got a budget for the maintenance, and then you can also stack up a budget for the repair, and then see again how you're doing with those. And for each and every one of my service agreements, I'm also able to track our pull-through work. And let's talk a little bit about pull-through work. And most of the time, we're going to go ahead and be able to see that from the mobile app. Our technicians are going to be the ones identifying that pull through work. So on the build ops comes with a mobile app. That mobile app has both online and offline functionality. I don't know what it is about these buildings, Woody, but they basically build them as like they're kind of like bunkers, right? It's not uncommon to walk into a basement or walk into a corner of a building and not have service, right?
Right.
And it's hard to think about this. Poor Woody back in his day, they didn't have smartphones. Now that's not a dig at Woody. I mean, it is a little bit,
Yes, it
but
is.
honestly, when I started, there was no cell phones either, no
Sure,
smartphones.
sure.
We're only talking 12, 13 years ago that the iPhone was invented, and that it really became prevalent. When I got into construction software, to date myself, my background's in construction, just like Woody's, more on the commercial project management side of things. I was a field superintendent, estimator, project manager. But about 10 years ago, I jumped to construction software. And when I first started, no apps, wasn't a thing. Smartphones were not a thing. We were still super impressed. The Nextels, right? You push the button, it was like a walkie-talkie. That was like that was the latest and greatest technology then. Nowadays, smartphones. Everybody's got them. Even my old man, who went down kicking and screaming from his flip phone, he still sends me pictures of his garden, right? Talking about being retired. Those are the photos I'm getting. So with that said, we try to make the mobile app to be super simple. So when I log in, I see a list of the work that I'm scheduled for the day, right? So I got an 11, I got a 12, I got a 1, etc. And if I pop into one of these visits, I can update the folks back in the office, let them know that, hey, I'm en route to the job. Hey, I've arrived to the job. Now my dispatch board is up to date. And if they get a phone call from the customer, they go, oh yeah, he's on his way. Or yeah, it looks like he just showed up 2 minutes ago. So you'll probably see him in just a second. Now, for your technicians, this is all the information, not all of it, but this is some of the information that I can provide to them. Where's your address, right? Where are you going? I mean, for a technician, Woody, I think this is a nationwide thing, but the Thomas guide, right? Do you
Mhm.
remember the Thomas guide? I had a
Oh, yeah.
Thomas guide under the seat of my van, and I would pull the Thomas guide out and flip to the page, and yeah, you learn the city pretty well that way. But nowadays, it's cheating. You just push the button, right?
Right.
If I need to get a hold of that property rep, again, it's cheating. I don't have a Rolodex. I just push the button, right? And I can go ahead and give them a call if I need to. Now, as far as like what work needs to be performed, in the case of these maintenance agreements, it's really going to be around tasking. So you've got pieces of equipment, customers got pieces of equipment. We need to provide some sort of service on those pieces of equipment. Now, don't let my examples sort of pigeonhole the functionality here, because it's totally up to you how we go about this. But essentially, you know, you got the boiler, you need to do a flame analysis or another of other different checks that you need to do. You got the chiller. We need to check the pressures, change the belts, all that sort of stuff. These can each be tasks that you set up. But BuildOps also has a forms tool. So a lot of times customers will set up one task that says fill out the form. Woody, can you talk a little bit about different sort of form checklists that have seen over the years?
Sure. And um, most most really sophisticated mechanical contractors really focus in on specific tasking for each type of equipment. Now, a rooftop is a rooftop in most cases. There are some subtle changes depending on the manufacturer. Same thing with chillers. Same thing with mission critical pieces of equipment, if they're water cooled or maybe they're air cooled, whatever it might be. So the more intricate you can get with tasking, the better off you're going to be, for two reasons. If you lined up 10 mechanics and you said, hey, listen, go do the maintenance on this particular boiler, they all would probably be different in small minute parts. So we take away the guesswork by developing these tasks. Hey, Mr. Mechanic, this is what we want you to do this particular time. We don't have to grease bearings every single visit. We don't have to change oil filters every single business visit, or fuel filters, or whatever it might be. So we help the guys in the field by saying, these are the specific things we want you to do, and it keeps it streamlined. It also keeps it uniform, so that whatever maintenance that we do for this particular client, if there's another building that has similar equipment, we're going to be offering the same type of work, quality of work at that particular business. So that gives you an opportunity as a contractor to be uniform across the board. And when I say uniform, I'm talking about uniformly great across the board.
Yeah, no, those are great points there, Woody. A couple questions come in to the chat. I'll kind of preface this by saying a lot of these questions, they deserve like a one-on-one, because you guys are asking a lot of detailed product questions.
Sure.
Some of this stuff at a high level though, think of build ops place in the market. Our market is focused, our offering is focused on commercial trade contractors. So there's been questions about, hey, do you all do plumbing? Do you all do elevators? Yeah, short answer is yes, right? If you're a specialty contractor doing commercial work, build ops is by far the best fit. If you're strictly residential, there's like 100 field service management platforms that are focused on the residential industry. Now, residential means different things to different people. If you're doing multifamily, we consider that commercial workflows anyway. So, don't just think because there are people living in the building that always means residential, at least the way Build Ops thinks about it. So, commercial, specialty contractors, that's exactly what this system's for. And I'll give you all some contact information here in just a second, so we can set up and actually dive into some of your individual questions, like on a one-on-one session. One thing that I wanted to bring up is Build Ops has a form generating engine within the software, so that if there is a particular form that needs to be filled out, we're able to handle those. You got one of two flavors. It can either be a fillable PDF like you all see here, or you can actually build your own, and we can autofill information, make, model, serial number, customer name, all that sort of stuff. So, in the interest of time here today, guys, I think we'll probably wrap it up here. Any final questions, throw those into the chat. I can go into products for hours. I think the one last part of product that I'll mention is that when the guys find something that needs to be quoted, that they can surface this back, right? This pull through work is something that we hammered on really hard, where they can flag this job as, quote, needed, and then they can provide what we call recommendations. Some people might call them deficiencies. Then you can track those back to specific pieces of equipment. And then you're going to have a whole dashboard back into Build Ops to manage these recommendations, these deficiencies, this pull through work, so that y'all can manage those as well. Woody, if this was something that we hit on really heavily, you want to touch on that just a little bit more?
Sure. And I think one of the things that really makes people a big part of the decision when people are trying to understand who they are going to use as far as a service provider is the ability to follow up in a timely fashion. This gives your company, this gives you as a service provider the opportunity to, instead of waiting for paperwork to come back from the field and then being shuffled through the office and then finally getting out to a salesperson a week or two later, and then we finally decide that we have to go back out and make a visit to the site to look at it again and all that other good stuff. This streamlines everything in a great fashion, and it gives you the opportunity to follow up in a timely fashion, so that your client, and I'm sure some of you have had this happen, we don't follow up as quickly as we should, and what ends up happening is the client gets impatient. They go off and use another contractor. So it's important to be able to follow up. And that's part of our service. That's part of the mechanical contracting plan maintenance that we're putting together, is that we're going to follow up and fix things in a timely fashion. That's for sure, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be giving you the tools to be able to report on that, to make sure that these things are being followed up on appropriately. Again, I think if this is ringing a chord with anybody today, absolutely reach out to us so that we can dive in a little bit more detail. Really only scratching the surface on some of the opportunities here. Want to be respectful of everybody's time though. And so, with that said, I think we got a pretty good overview of some of the major feature sets, but there's a lot BuildOps has to offer, both for T&M work as well as your project work, dispatching, critical path scheduling, quoting, basically BuildOps should handle your field service management platform end to end on like a one stop shop.